Welcome to an exciting new series. We are constructing an LGB garden railway.
And it's finally summer. Sunset. I can perform photosynthesis. It's beautiful here. What different weather situations did we have during the setup? Snow, sleet, hail. In between, sunshine again, and now we are on the patio. Before us, which you can't see right now, there's a train standing around. What does Rum mean? She stands there and is already looking forward to the next test drive. But we thought, in between, we would talk briefly about the topic of weather resistance and especially about maintenance, because I know, Elke, you always like it when everything is clean. I've been scolded for making the track stones dirty.
Actually, I have to first brush that off carefully. That's kind of my own standard for myself as well. Look, I brought something with me. That will indeed deliver pain to your eyes.
Look, I completely dragged a rail through the thick, muddy terrain. That's precisely what it appears to look like now, doesn't it? And I could imagine that there is absolutely nothing missing anymore. And that's precisely why I'm happy that we have Andreas back on the line. Andreas Franz. I genuinely believe I can say indeed a passionate garden railroader for over 50 years. Or Andreas? I must confess, I have been persistently infected with this particular virus for over 50 years now. Very good. Then I hope you're doing particularly well despite the virus. You see this rail, it's been pulled completely through the earth. Truly, there is nothing more to be done. And I can imagine that it still looks quite harmless compared to the tracks that have been lying in your garden for the last 50 years.
That's how it is. I also brought mine again. Mine looks much better than your rail. 50 years out in the garden. In principle, the material is still perfectly okay, but of course, at some point, the edge of the rail will inevitably get dirty. And then, of course, there are one or two invaluable tips on how to get it clean again.
I must say I didn't cheat, Andreas. Dragged it through mud once, so it's extra dirty for the show today. I used the old fairground trick. When you're sold any kind of cleaning stuff, then you make things dirty beforehand, and I dragged them through the mud extra. So it's not that dirty because it just lay outside and we made it dirtier again. But the rail you just had, that really comes from your garden, right?
She is 50 years old. I bought those 50 years ago. It lay in the grass for a very long time, then at some point on a siding. The track was reconstructed, and here, for such an indoor facility, there is always a rail that can be utilized again. So she is 50 years old and you can get her clean. I would like to tell you something in 3 steps. Gladly once over the track, once over the cars, and once over the locomotives, what one has to do there. I can only tell all garden railroaders, don't worry, the effort might even be less than with an H0 layout that is located in the basement. So don't be afraid of the garden railway. Drive up with the track if you want. Full measurement track, right? Full detection track. Nothing can happen. One can make mistakes. A lot helps, and maybe some people think that, who say, I'm going at it with coarse sandpaper. That's really bad for such a track. Because we certainly don't want to get any grooves in there, so not just grinding grooves, but rather we aim to thoroughly polish a rail. For this, LGB has brought this track plotter to the market. I believe he is also already 50 years old.
I'll just unpack. Wait, Andreas, I'm packing mine out. I have to tear open the package first. Ours is still brand new. Yes, we have that brand new. Did you say we need that? We should order it. We have done. We follow your instructions. But it looks like his. It's exactly the same. That's what you said.
Used. You can see that on the side. But that one, I believe, is also already 20, 30 years old. So that one indeed works for a long time too. This is not an abrasive, but it is actually a polishing stone that can be worked with. You just walk over the tracks 3, 4 times, and I can already see it here. I don't know if you can already see it in the film or in the camera. The track immediately becomes shiny again. Truly.
I have it here with me too. I'll show it on my track. Shines immediately. Okay, that was the easy trick because that was already the clean track. I'll take a dirty one now. And then we'll do it with this one. That's enough.
If I want to do a basic cleaning at my place, maybe I haven't driven over the winter, I don't always drive, then I go over it once with this grinding spot and grind the rails once so that they are a bit shiny again. LGB also has a specialized track cleaning locomotive for those who have a very large layout. It does nothing else. A wheel simply turns and quite practically grinds around on the rail.
But we are not here in a cleaning place. Oh, let's get involved ourselves here. All right, so a cleaning locomotive for next time. With your system, that's enough. You guys want to move around a bit too. Exactly. Andrea, she is already coming. I have another secret mushroom for you. I'll show you something. Wait, I want to show something on the camera quick. I have now also gone over my dirty track twice, and it is still somewhat dirty on the side, but that doesn't really matter, because it needs to maintain the contact with the locomotive on top. Additionally, I also took out the small locomotive here from the starter pack from our very first episode, where you can once again see the two current collectors on the bottom side, and they need to have a consistent contact with the track. I'm just going to carefully lay this over here like this, and then you can see they've made contact here again. The clean, precise contact. That's precisely why it doesn't matter at all, not even slightly, how dirty or unclean the wood imitation here appears to be, coming from the railroad ties. The main thing is that she has good contact again with this solid brass from the LGB tracks, which really can withstand a lot. So thing no?
To Andreas, for the rails, operating this sanding block means, yes, you have to go to the floor, and that is not so back-friendly. My back hurts. I have crafted the following. If you ever look into the camera or at me, here is a broomstick. There is a block attached to the bottom. That one is indeed exceptionally filthy already. A spray actually comes with this broomstick or on this broomstick.
Okay.
And with that, I walk along the tracks. That means one walks along the tracks once, there is no need to bend down. And for normal dirt accumulation, if you haven't driven your vehicle for say 1 or 2 weeks, then that's completely sufficient, truly. The trick is, if I ever remove my very great towel here, underneath is a block that has grooves, which are spaced just like the rails, so 4.5 centimeters. So I really don't need to actively guide the cutter. It automatically guides itself along the tracks. Some old towel is actually coming over. After a certain period of time, it looks precisely like this. Interestingly, it cleans the tracks. So you meticulously clean the contact surfaces, thoroughly clean with this specialized contact agent, ensuring optimal performance. So a connectivity test has that, right? Used.
That was a contact spray you just used, wasn't it?
That was a contact spray for oxide-dissolving contact cleaner.
Available at every hardware store from many companies. Okay? And you hopefully patented that block with your 4-centimeter grooves, right? You certainly won't betray that, will you? Who indeed should we consider betraying that to? So, as a result, nobody tells us anything. Okay, so, first tip, I'll keep him here for now anyway. It is available directly from LGB. This is the article number 5004. That's one to remember. This is the rail grinder, not grinder, but polisher. Because, as mentioned, it is not being ground, but it is being nicely polished here, so that this solid brass rail also has good contact with the locomotive again. Tip number 1, tip number 2, the homemade, although I can also imagine that you could attach something like that to a broomstick. Tip number 2, you said, we need to talk about the locomotive. What do we have to do with the locomotive? I am not finished yet.
I would genuinely like to know what one has to do with such a thing. With the switches. It can also get dirty, of course. There is the difficulty in making contact. The second thing is, we also have moving parts here with the soft tongues. That's correct. Indeed, every LGB switch located here possesses a small cover on it, a cover that can undoubtedly be removed. And here one should occasionally clean out the dirt with a screwdriver. Then you can also get the switches clean, so it must be ensured that the switch blades are easy to move. You clean that with the screwdriver, and this plate helps to be able to clean the jetty, under which the mechanics are cleanly.
Do you also have certainty with you? Yes. Wait a moment. I'll just hold it up to the camera. I have a switch right here and have now taken down this footbridge on the side. So, it is right here on the side. This is that little footbridge here that you were talking about, and I have actually taken it away now, so that one can clean here again at this spot. What did you say? What do you clean with? I just fetched the switch. With a screwdriver or...
With a small screwdriver, take out the dirt on the left and right with a thin screwdriver. Can we take another weighting stick? Or is that rather unhelpful? Yes, not needed. Sometimes dirt accumulates in there because it is also a depression. Then you sweep it out to the left and right. Maybe a small brush or something like that would also work. I have such a thin screwdriver, it works best with that. And then you could also spray some of the contact spray on it again, because it is supposed to be movable. Alright, okay.
That means I can go over it with the block, with the polishing block just the same? Exactly, for the moving parts I take this out, this stick. I'm doing it again now so that we've really seen it again. And then you go here on the side, which is now firmly from the drive, you go over it, and then just here with the screwdriver, you remove the grind, so to speak, that accumulates over the decades or over the months, depending on what the weather is like outside.
That's enough for track maintenance. Okay, let's move on to the second, Michael. You once brought such a nice path here, you say, in Swabia, I believe.
Oh, we're not in Swabia. We're in Munich, but it's irrelevant.
What can one do with such a car? Under normal conditions, they wouldn't have that. But if they ever get dirty in dish soap, lukewarm water, just wipe off with a normal cloth, then nothing can go wrong. So you basically put them in the bathtub, right? Take the bathtub maybe. Instead of the rubber duck, one takes their LGB cart with them and completes a craft.
That's a pricey rubber duck. They're high quality and quite valuable.
What is occasionally quite helpful indeed is to carefully look at the axes here and then thoughtfully apply a small drop of oil, because the axles run inside a carriage bearing, and if you lubricate the axles with oil, which is available for purchase from Marklin, using a small pipette to apply a drop of oil now and then it runs perfectly again. Does that apply to the locomotives as well? Indeed, the same principle applies to the locomotive. I also once brought a locomotive. We do indeed have the advantage of having entirely encapsulated transmissions. All locomotives, I actually don't have to touch the transmission at all. It means the screws that are down here are strictly off limits for me for the next 30, 40 years. What is helpful is cleaning the locomotive, just as described. Perhaps do not take it into the bathtub if you have a cucumber-worthy locomotive that might have speakers somewhere, then really only wipe it with a damp cloth and do the same on the rods. Please apply a drop of oil to the wheels. Do not use the car oil that has accidentally fallen off somewhere during the oil change process, but rather use high-quality oil that does not remain stagnant.
That means, you just said, you can also buy from Marklin. That means what you also know from the other gauges, from H0 or Trix H0. That means it doesn't matter, just normal oil for model making or for the model railway. Exactly that. Okay, good. You just talked about speakers. That means we also have, even with the slightly larger, with the higher quality LGB locomotives, we now also have many digital functions, sound functions. That means there was also your tip again, not to use too much, so now don't put it in the dishwater, but really, it was indeed added, this dishwater trick, it's really only for the wagons, for the cars, you know?
Dishwater is okay for locomotives, but not for the bathtub.
The tub thing was just a joke.
We do it downwards, and to that extent with a damp cloth, a bit of dish soap. In case of emergency, also spray it with a light garden hose.
These are durable, in the rain outside the LGB, so clean them with dish soap and let me make sure we have said it safely, because that with the bathtub was more of a joke from me, but what I wanted to say is, such a wagon, theoretically you could also put it into a small wash tub, with dish soap and dip it, you get it clean, because there is no electronics and nothing at all on it. But that's taboo with a locomotive. The locomotive is indeed old, so I can clean the locomotive with a garden hose and with a detergent on top, but you wouldn't dip it.
Not necessarily, no indeed.
By the way, there are attempts to have a locomotive run in water, but I wouldn't do that with mine.
Okay, I'll just leave that uncommented. Indeed, they do drive outside, even amidst the snow and the pouring rain. The locomotives, they truly endure an extraordinarily tremendous amount. But here it's less about having fun in the bath, but now it's about cleaning the locomotive. And accordingly, the tip from you, I believe, is very good. That one says, you approach it from below with the oil. You approach the surfaces. There is really no need for anything more than that. Now, what about the topic of smoke, though? We have another smoke condenser positioned up here on the side, ensuring that the locomotive can steam or smoke in a truly, prototypically accurate manner. Is there to note when cleaning?
No, I wouldn't even go there. If possible, I would let the smoke clear out, meaning letting the locomotive run until the smoke has also cleared out reasonably well. Such a week, 14 days is no problem, but if you then perhaps leave a locomotive standing for 2 years with a full smoke tank, that might not always be so. Just let it run empty, don't clean it at all and do nothing. Above all, especially the locomotive you have, it has a small evaporation rod. If you think you need to go in there with a screwdriver or Q-tips to clean it, something like that can also break off. That's why there's a grate on top, so that evil fingers can't reach in.
The sore finger goes away. Very good. Okay, we have the rails, we talked about the locomotive, we talked about the cars. What's the deal with such parts? Now, I've brought along a control panel here. Is there anything to consider? The stuff is outside in all weathers. Could there be anything where you say, I would do that differently, I would cover that up, I would somehow put a tarp over it? Or is all that really wind and weatherproof?
You just opened the flap at the back. Remarkably, the part is exceptionally weatherproof. The closures at the back are securely covered with one flap, and the switches at the top are closed with the other flap, and then left standing. I actually used to have such components before I digitized it. When digitizing, that will then be omitted later. They also stood outside with me for 20-30 years and still looked the same.
Oh, nice. Close to the party, so to speak.
But also cleaning with a sponge or with a cloth and a bit of soapy water or dishwashing liquid water, then everything works out. I can tell, not much wrong.
So, let me summarize briefly. We have the friend here, this is the polishing blob, which we have here, from LGB, with which one can simply polish dirty rails a bit cleaner again. We showed that at the beginning. That's fairly easy. Just stoop a bit when the train is down. By doing so, you've got a self-patented broomstick. Almost built. Excellent. It's so great. I wonder how many YouTube comments you get about whether you can also order them in bulk from you, or whether you actually make any decisions. Then, we have number 2, you mentioned, right here at the switches. Just simply open this one cover plate here in front. Carefully clean the moving parts with the screwdriver, or if preferred, with the cotton swab, ensuring each component is precisely attended to. Then, I take with a cloth, gladly with soapy water, just gently clean a bit. They can even be theoretically submerged without any issues. Proceed towards the locomotives and the amphibious vehicles, and once again, at the axles, with a completely normal standard model train oil. So no olive oil, model train oil. Joke. So no other oil, but really a high-quality model railway oil, as is known from other gauges, for example from Märklin. And otherwise, screws, you said, off-limits for 30 years. So in German, simply do not open the locomotive, because it does not need much maintenance, but also occasionally apply oil on the side down here. Did I understand that correctly? Or...
Yes, that's absolutely right. I guess when we eventually make the episode about it in 20 or 30 years, perhaps someone will come up with the innovative idea to change these grinders here. But then, we'll delve into a discussion again in 20 years. These are spare parts indeed that can be replaced. Nothing will happen there in the next 20 years. It's great and beautiful.
Then anything can happen with the weather now, right, Elke? The sun is still shining, Andreas. Everything's great here in Munich.
I truly envy you. The weather is not so nice in Hamburg, unfortunately.
Well, then we'll see each other in one of the next episodes. We still have quite a bit ahead of us. We also want to let the train run on automatic for a bit indeed. You just mentioned digital driving, Andreas. We will certainly talk about that again in one of the next episodes. And otherwise, we still have much to do to ensure our railway operates with switches, signals, automation and everything around it. So there's still a bit to do with our garden railway. Looking forward to next episodes. Feel free to add in comments if any additional remarks. And what we have shown in the episode, polisher, block and so on and so forth, we will also pack again into the description text of this video.